Welcome, everyone. Today's discussion is going to be focusing on understanding the future of product management. And with that, we have 4 different panelists. These are product management experts, people who have decades of experience in product management. And we're going to be getting into this discussion. So first off, I want to have introductions and go in order from left to right. Introductions, and we start with JJ. Rorie, please.
Hey everyone, I'm JJ Rorie. I'm excited to be here. I am the CEO of a firm called Great Product Management. So we do training, advising, consulting, coaching, etc. for corporate clients. I teach product management at Johns Hopkins University, wrote a book called Immutable, and host Product Voices podcast. Excited to be here.
Thank you, JJ, and welcome. And Pamela, are you here yet?
Oh yeah, sorry, I've been here for a little while.
All right.
Sorry, I thought it was in the same room, and then they said, "Oh no, you have to go across." I was like, "Okay." Right, Pamela Schure, been in product management for a long time, co-author of Product Management for Dummies, and now working with Steve Johnson at Product Growth Leaders.
Right, welcome, Dave.
Yeah, so Dave Mathias, I am in product at a SaaS startup called Shipwell, and I also still do some consulting. Before started joining Shipwell, I just consulted with Beyond the Data, doing coaching with product and analytics teams. Good to be here.
Great, welcome. And Steve.
I'm Steve Johnson. I'm with Product Growth Leaders as well. I founded the firm a few years ago and work with a number of really smart people. I've been doing product management coaching for 25 years. And I frequently get people who say, gosh, I took your class in the late 90s, a long time ago, which is pretty funny. So I'm excited today to join you, Hector, on talking about the future of product management.
Great, welcome. And I'm Hector Castillo. I'll be the moderator for today. I'm CEO of Bold PM. And then both Steve and I have been, for the last couple of years, been organizing events for Product Camp DC as well. And most of them have been online up until now. And glad to be part of this particular event, Product Summit Online. And let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is, what are the current trends and challenges for product managers? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually allow each of the panelists to have a minute to actually respond to this question. And we'll start with JJ first.
So top trends. I think, it may sound obvious, but the fact that we are primarily all going to be in some sort of remote virtual environment. Right. So our teams are going to be dispersed around the world. I think that is a trend that will continue. And so the relationships we build will be built in various ways. I think we've gotten some practice over that the last couple of years. So that will continue. The second one is tied to that. And I think what's going to happen is async work is going to continue to be really important, right? So in other words, we're not going to always work kind of in live real time. We're going to do videos, we're going to do writing. We're going to provide documentation back and forth in an asynchronous way. And I think what that's going to mean for us is that we have to improve our writing skills, our documentation skills are, and I don't mean documentation in the kind of old bureaucratic way, but the way that we communicate, we have to do it in a different way. And I think that's just going to kind of drive home that relationship building, the communication things. And then the third thing I think is uncertainty. I mean, just general uncertainty with the economies. Businesses don't work well under uncertainty. There's going to be layoffs. There's going to be, kind of things that impact our product results. It's an odd situation economically, right? It's, are we in a recession? Are we not? And so just the various kind of our general uncertainty is going to drive a lot of things that we have to do as product managers to be flexible, to pivot when needed, and to just kind of be ready to live in that ambiguous world.
Great. And the next one is Pamela. And Pamela, one of the things that I wanted to encourage you to talk about trends and challenges, and specifically everybody's talking that moving forward, most organizations need to include more diversity, more equity, more inclusion in the workplace. what are the trends that are sort of challenging that for product managers themselves in the next few years?
Well, I think that the big challenge is it kind of depends on your leadership, right? Does your leadership view this as an issue? Because very often they're the ones who are responsible for bringing in the latest product manager. And if they really don't view this as an issue, then they're not going to bring in the diversity. And as a result, they're going to be facing more challenges in terms of making their product successful. I think that's kind of like a baseline, which is your team diverse? If it is, yes, good. If it isn't, you got to work on it, right? That's going to happen there. I think I want to kind of go a little bit more into the technical sides of what JJ was talking about, which is our products are not going to be all encompassing. We are not going to own everything. We're going to own a piece of something, and we're going to link with other pieces. And we're going to have to rely on other parts of our ecosystem to be delivered possibly by different organizations. And so the technological challenge of making sure that everything links up correctly and that we're able to kind of, let's say we have a pricing module, it's done on from company X, and it's done on the basis of an algorithm, and moving that to like AI or an ML solution and swapping that out. Like, we need to get much better at thinking about creative ways that we're going to deliver even more value, and we might not be delivering all of it. So the juggling's going to get worse.
Great. Thank you so much. Dave?
Yeah, and I think getting to your point, Pamela, it's like there is a lot of like do more with less, right? And part of that is leveraging other solutions more and being more creative. Even startups right now, there's a lot of startups that are doing cuts, doing your capital is not so easy to get. You're seeing it at the big companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, everyone sort of in that stage, even the big folks. So I think, there's always that ambiguity. Getting to what JJ was saying, we always have ambiguity, but I think the ambiguity is a lot more. And I think as product managers, really level setting expectations and really thinking about how does your roadmap line up with the current environment, and setting expectations early, it will more likely lead to success versus letting that sort of drag on and just waiting and then not delivering as prior commitments.
Great. Thank you. And Steve? You're on mute, by the way.
We've spent the last decade perfecting development. We've all done Agile, and we've all learned Scrum, and some of us have tried SAFe, or as they like to call it, Safe Agile. It's so Agile, you have to say it twice, which I think is funny. But anyway, one of the keys of Agile is DevOps, is normalizing the way you do development, particularly in widely diverse teams. Guess what? That's the next 10 years for us in product management. We need to, it's a super attractive job. Lots of people want to get into a product management role. And once they get it, how the hell do you do this job? We're going to be seeing, I am now seeing more and more companies implement some form of product operations or product ops so that they can onboard everybody. We all have access to the appropriate systems. We all have access to the appropriate data, and we all have access to the way we do it here.
Great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to remind the audience, you can type in your questions. We are going to have some time for Q&A before the end of today's discussion, but we're just starting with the first few questions, and we're just going to round robin with the panelists. So here's the next question. What are your predictions based on this information of the trends and challenges? What is your prediction for product managers in 2023? And what do they need to do to prepare to be more effective and become exceptional as product managers within their organizations? And I want to start with this. I want to start Pamela with the first response.
I kind of want to extend what I was talking about before, which is I think before you could kind of learn to be a product manager, and then you could just hop into whatever. A little bit, you could hop into other different product areas. I think there's some profound technological changes, and we're going to have to spend a lot more time learning about things that we just kind of let the tech people do and we didn't care about. We have to know the ins and outs. Sid talked about cybersecurity levels. You need to understand, at least at some level, a lot of the underlying technology so you can have an intelligent conversation. You cannot leave it to the developers and assume they know everything. That would be
so much.
Yeah.
JJ, you just wrote a book, and I believe some of the nuggets in your book actually applies to helping product managers prepare for a new role or their first role as a product manager. Can you share some of those predictions that are, I think, timeless as far as how to prepare for the future?
Yeah, it's actually, I love what Pamela said, but I, again, a little biased because it's what my book is about, but I truly believe it was the whole reason for the book was to almost future proof ourselves, or at least find those things that are common across all industries, across all eras, right? And so I think these 5 immutable truths of great product managers, the book title, is we got to understand customers. They change, and so our knowledge has to pivot with the changing customers. We've got to build relationships. We've got to communicate well. We've got to display good judgment and make good decisions, and we've got to prioritize our time. Right? Those things aren't going to change. And so, whatever happens in the future, to me, let's make sure we've got those 5 things: customer intelligence, communication, relationships, judgment, and prioritization, because those will anchor us in all of the things that will change, right? And to what Pamela said, like, we're going to have to develop some other hard skills and some other literacy around some other areas. Well, if we don't have that foundation of relationships, of the way we communicate and all of these things, if we don't have that foundation, we're not going to be as successful as we're focusing in other areas. So I think, to me, I think anyone building their career in product management needs to focus on these 5 areas. It's not the only things you need to do or to be able to accomplish, but you've got to have these things as your anchor, your foundation, and then you can build upon everything else. And everything else tends to be a little bit easier when you've got that foundation.
Thank you, JJ. Dave?
Yeah, and I'm just seeing some things in the chat there too. I have a book that's coming out. It's in the production phase right now, and it's around data translator, being a data translator, and certain product managers. It's one key important part of it, but it's also it applies to everyone in different spaces. And so I think one of the things that product managers oftentimes struggle with. There's some that are a little more technical, and they're able to be well versed with data, but it's becoming more and more of a key item for folks, and not just understanding data, but also being able to communicate to your different audiences. So certainly, I think that is one of the things that I think I see some questions in the chat that I would recommend is just upskilling yourself in that segment. And I think it's more and more important, especially in helping you around also understanding what to say no to, because we know we have to say no to a lot of things, and I think we're just going to be forced to do, especially when 2023, we're going to have to say no to more things, and so that helps in that element.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. In response to this question, we've heard about the criticality of technical skills. I want to ask a question: what's more important, soft skills or technical hard skills for the future of product management?
Mm-hmm. People, I often get asked, shouldn't a product manager learn to code? And, there's nothing wrong with knowing how to code, but that's not what you were hired for. My prediction for 2023 is more and more product managers are going to realize that product management is, in fact, a business role, that we have to look at every idea and say, not only is this good for the user, but is it good for the buyer, and is it good for us? And it's not just, well, it's as Dave said, it's about prioritization. You can't do everything, so we need to make sure we're doing the right things, and we have to look at that from a business lens. And in the past, I think we've really focused on the technical aspects of product management. In 2023, it's going to become increasingly important to leverage your business experience in product management.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, what should product managers do to prepare to face the future, given these trends and challenges? And I think that this is kind of an expansion. If you have anything else to contribute besides what we discussed so far, but it's about really understanding what are the top challenges that I think that you believe product managers need to start preparing in the next, for the next year and beyond. So I want to start this discussion with Dave first.
Yeah. And so, of course, I'm going to reference the session that I did earlier around behavioral science, because I actually think it's really valuable because I think it helps you understand yourself better. It help understand your colleagues and help understand your customers and not just your colleagues, your engineers and that, but also your executives. So I think upskilling, learning more and feeling more comfortable with behavioral science and the concepts around that. But the other thing, of course, is data science, and it's not like being a data scientist, just like you don't need to be a coder, but you really got to feel comfortable in the world. The world's changing quickly and more analytics. I mean, heck, there's a lot of stuff you'll see if on the sort of text to art or text to video stuff that's happening, a bunch of things that are coming out that a lot of businesses are just going to get disrupted around those concepts and understanding what's happening in those areas. And is your business going to be impacted? How is it going to be impacted? How can you use things like that to impact and really staying on top of those things? And again, not having to be the person that's the data scientist or the programmer or any of those things, but also somebody that really can keep on, readapting yourself.
Great. Thank you so much. JJ, one of the things that I wanted to mix in here is how critical is it for product managers to not only be able to align and empower product teams, but what about team building?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting, and again, to kind of the future of product manager, I do believe it's that foundation that I talked about before. But there's also this, and I agree with Steve, have to be, but some technologies like AI and machine learning and Web3 and all of these things are happening, right? And so we don't have to be the experts in them from a technology perspective, but we have to be literate enough to understand what it means to our products. And maybe most importantly, our role becomes the kind of the one who understands what it means from an inclusion perspective, an ethical perspective. Like, are we using these technologies in a way that inadvertently may impact our customers in a negative way? And I think product manager, while it may not be our only role, and there may be others in the organization focused on that as well, I think product management needs to be very keenly focused on the customer and the impacts to the customer of some of these new technologies. And to that point, or to your question specifically, I think part of our job will be to build the customer side or the customer impact side of some of these new technologies. Whatever industry we're in, it's going to be impacted in some way, if not next year, in years to come. And so I think that part of our job is to be that orchestrator of the team and always kind of center ourselves back on the customer, the problem, and the potential impact of solutions that we look to build for those customers.
Great. Thank you so much. Pamela?
Yeah, I've been also following the chat, which I think is very interesting. And it's come to me that we're their fulcrum point, right? And I think JJ's right in the fact that we have certain core skills that without that, we are not effective, right? But I think more and more the technology side, we're going to have to wrap our arms around a bunch of technologies really fast and then figure out how we're going to communicate that within the organization. For example, someone asked about how is AI going to impact everything? AI is great, but there's a lot of other issues that come along with AI, just like JJ was talking about, that impact customers. And we have to bring that humanity into that discussion in addition to all the business things that we're talking about. I think PM is going to be even harder, and it has always been a very difficult role. I think it's going to be even harder to explain all the complexity back and forth.
Great, thank you. And Steve?
Mm-hmm. Well, to leverage what Pamela said, and I think we've all said earlier, in terms of preparing for the future, we do have to be curious about the technology in our lives. We have to become much better communicators. We need to be comfortable on video, comfortable with writing. And it turns out, nobody has time to read. So we have to learn to be, really focused in our thinking. And we need to learn in 2023, even more so, how to engage not only with development, but with sales and marketing and leadership.
Great. Thank you so much. So I think right now it's time for, I don't know if we have any time left for questions and answers, but here's everybody's contact information. You can actually connect with them on LinkedIn. This is the short URL to their LinkedIn profile, or you can follow them on Twitter. This is their Twitter handle as well. And for everyone, including the panelists and moderators. I want to thank all the panelists for such a great, engaging conversation. And then I think we're going to open up for our audience questions. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat.
Yes, Hector, thank you so much. There's actually an overwhelming number of questions. Some of them the panelists have already answered, so thanks for your replies. JJ and Dave already replying to a few. So the first question I will ask is from Vishal Goel. Do you think in this looming economic recession situation, more companies will start considering the PM role as more of an expense than an investment or a necessary part of the business value generation?
Wow.
Interesting question. Who wants to take a crack at JJ? I don't know if you have any response to that.
I mean, I look, there's no question that some organizations may see it that way, but I don't see those organizations being successful in the long run. Let's be honest and brutal there. I mean, product management, if a company doesn't understand what product management is and the value it brings to an organization, number one, that's a problem. That's a real problem, right? And number two, then they're going to be solution driven. They're going to be engineering driven. It's probably not going to end up working out that well for them, in my humble opinion. I believe that there may be some cuts, and there may be some ways that we are asked to do more with less. But I have a hard time believing that an organization that knows what product management is and believes in it is going to turn its attention away from product management. Now, to the point earlier, I think that Pamela made and that I made, some of our industries are going to change dramatically with the technology enablers that keep them going. And so if we as individuals don't continue to adapt our skills, our literacy, and again, we don't have to become the technologist, but if we don't understand the core of what's driving our business models and our businesses, then we as individuals may find ourselves behind the eight ball, right? But I believe that most companies who already have a good understanding and belief in product management will adapt, not really kind of throw it out the window.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, JJ. This question is from Matt Bettina. It looks like it's asked of Steve. The questions of, is it good for the user? Is it good for the buyer? Is it good for us? Aren't these the things that executives need to worry about? I'm being somewhat facetious. Where do product people fit in the middle of this to add value for the business?
I'm tempted to pass it to Pamela because she's laughing so hard. Let me go ahead and do that. Pamela, jump in.
Remind me of the question, because I was so freaked out by it. Say it again quickly. Sorry.
The key questions are, is it good for the user? Is it good for the buyer?
I remember now. Is it like upper management should also be worried about this? I think the real issue is we should all be worried about this, anybody in a company, but we all have our different perspectives. And really where the rubber hits the road is the product. That's what the customer interacts with. So the upper management can want to do this all they like, but it manifests itself through what we give direction on. So that's why it's really important. So I think the answer is both, but we're it, right?
Totally. Nobody has enough resources. I mean, that's just a given. There's always more that can be done. And this is true in marketing as well as development. There's just this never ending list of, couldn't we add this feature? Couldn't we run this program? Couldn't we go to this show? Couldn't we do something, right? So it's product managers and product marketing managers who have to be brutal in the way we prioritize. Ultimately, we're the one assigning work to development. I didn't quite mean it that way. We're the one guiding the prioritization of the work that development and marketing do. And we have to say sometimes, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this instead. And we look at it through the lens of what's right for the customer, what's right for the buyer, and what's right for the company.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. We do have time for about one more question, and this is from Dolly. Speaking of the business role of product managers, I've seen more and more product manager job ads preferring an MBA background. For people who are more of a tech background, is there any tips for acquiring business knowledge other than going for an MBA?
Who wants to take a crack at this?
Well, I mean, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, well, so one thing I was just going to say is one is instead of just going a full-blown MBA, there is more and more things on Coursera to get yourself. But I think just like making connections with folks, and you should be doing this anyways as product managers, understanding what finance people care about, understanding what legal and just cares about. And that's what good product managers do. And knowing that, you get a lot of these MBAs now in companies, and they used to be, the cool thing was MBAs in finance, right? Where it was a very finance oriented thing. So I think for my recommendation would be try a couple of things in Coursera. If you really find interest in it, maybe, I think MBAs are sort of, I also, as a person that went to an MBA program and also went to a JD program, I think they both bring very good value, but I also think there can also be way overvalued. And your better way to do is just make connections with people in those areas, understand what they care about, how they're measured, how they think, and you'll get a good education. And then put yourself, like, volunteer in situations that it's going to stress you to be maybe your project manager you're a technical person. You take on like a project management role for a project that's happening, a volunteer in some situation that's going to expose you more. So do something like that and see where those gaps might be and what you can learn.
Thank you so much, Dave. We didn't have a chance to get to all of the questions, so Hector has kindly put up on the screen how to reach some of our speakers, all of our panelists here. So I encourage you to reach out to them afterwards if you'd like to continue to ask any questions.